Howdy friendos, my name is Stuart, and welcome to part 2 of our look into the Dungeon Meshi characters. Today we are looking at the leader of the party, Laios, aka that time that everyone on Twitter pretended to be into chunky boys for a minute. If you missed out, last week we took a look at Chilchuck, the half-foot of the party, and he's the party skill monkey. If you haven't noticed, for the month of December, we have been posting a video nearly every single day. It's not been every day, but it's been most days. And it takes a lot of effort to do these high-fidelity videos, and if you don't mind, could you go ahead and just do me a big old favor and just hit that subscribe button? I've really wanted to hit 100,000 subscribers for a while now, and boy, that number is just evading me. It takes a long time to do these videos. We really want to hit that 100 subscriber goal. That is the big goal before the end of the year. I appreciate it if you do that. Laios Toden is a tall man that is strong, smart, but has a severe lack of social awareness. He has an immense love and respect for monsters, and has almost an encyclopedic knowledge of them, understanding both physiological and magical properties. Although Laios is obsessed with monsters, he understands and respects them enough to understand that they are dangerous, and he holds a very practical view of them as part of the natural order, rather than seeing them as a pet or holding them on any sort of pedestal. Laios low-key dislikes most people. I feel you, bro. And they also distrust him, because both parties usually fail to understand each other. Only his sister truly understands him, and because of that, Laios tends to be a loner, but trusts his party enough to at least support him in a fight. Being a loner who doesn't trust anyone and a person who isn't particularly interested in people, I think warrants starting Laios out at the beginning of the series at least at chaotic neutral. And although his take on the alignment is surprisingly chill, Laios does get excited when he starts talking about monsters. However, with that out of the way, let's go.
A full-pound burger patty covered in cheese, grilled onion, 5 strips of bacon, all sandwiched between
2 donuts.
Is this one of your menus? Sausage and waffle and fried chicken breakfast lasagna.
Yep.
Bacon wrapped chitlin stuffed catfish. Granddad, you can't serve this kind of food to people. It'll cause death.
Whoa, this is what crack must feel like.
The first thing we see happen in this series is Laios and the party fighting a dragon. The party is hungry and fatigued and not in top form. Laios pays such little attention that he nearly gets devoured. His sister Fallon pushes him out of the way and gets eaten instead. Fallon heroically teleports everyone else away. After realizing what happened, Laios' first instinct is to head back into the dungeon in order to rescue her before she can get digested. He even suggests selling Chilchuck and Marcel's gear in order to outfit himself with enough supplies so that no one else would get hurt. Laios is actually being quite heroic and noble during all of this, putting others' safety before his own. We're actually going to give him a lawful good. After securing the help of the party, Laios suggests hunting and eating monsters to survive within the dungeon rather than spending gold to sustain them. He utilizes a dungeon survival guide, not unlike the complete waifu handbook, available on our website at loadingcrewcrafts.com. This 352-page supplement is compatible with 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons as well as Pathfinder 1st and 2nd edition. On top of having 8 new anime-inspired races, over a dozen new classes, equipment, and spells, the main draw of the book are the fully realized cooking and camping mechanics. This chapter of the book gives detailed rules on how to determine the difficulty check on certain areas, what activities can be done, what the benefits are, and of course, cooking magical meals that grant bonuses such as the acid-seared gorgon ribs, the aberrant brains, or gelatinous cubelets. You could also indulge in some of the legendary meals, powerful artifact-level meals that grant you permanent buffs. One I'll show for this video, come and check out the other videos for other samples, is the Hellfire Curry. When you consume this meal, you gain resistance to all non-magical attacks, the Devil's Dark Vision that lets you see even in magical darkness, and immunity to fire and acid damage. As always with all of our YouTube promoted items, you can use the coupon code MYWaifu for 10% off your total order. However, regrettably, in this particular instance, Laios is not very good, and the guide is not very helpful to him as he prepares a sloppy meal. Fortunately, the party meets Senshi, and watches and learns as he cooks. Lawful neutral. Laios suggests eating some of the predatory plants, and she has issues with eating something that eats people. Laios does his best to acquiesce to her request, but they end up harvesting some carnivorous plants anyway. True neutral. The next morning, Laios participates in hunting the basilisk, the mandrake, and even the giant bat that will help keep him supplied for the next several episodes. During this time, Laios doesn't deserve any extra dings outside of comforting Marcel and telling her how much the party values her when it comes to her magical expertise. By the way, Marcel aggroed the giant bat and hunted a special mandrake since she was feeling useless in the earlier floors. This shows solid leadership skills and utilization of your party members, as well as being quite empathetic towards Marcel, and Laios feels like a real leader here. He continues to help the rest of the episode, especially in the trapped floor, letting Chilchuck take the lead. Lawful good. During episode 3, the gang encounter a hive? Community of living armors? Someone in the comments help me with this. Laios recounts how his first death was due to being ambushed by living armor. Ever since then, he's been obsessed with them, especially about their taste. The dub even plays some lip service to the idea that he has low-key PTSD from it, since he studied them in books for a while. However, during this episode, the party attempts to run past them, but they are stopped. Laios notices that their behavior is very animal-like, despite the fact that the gang insists that they're magical puppets rather than living creatures. After some careful observation, he has a plan. Laios sneaks past the pack of armors and into the boss room. He sees the shield of the boss carrying eggs and manages to overpower the creature and saves his party. He shows the party that the living armor is more like a mollusk, and their armor is like a shell that they manipulate like muscles. It's an excellent episode, and frankly, I think the living armor stuff might be the best twist in fantasy that I've seen in a long time. And I think Laios earns a chaotic neutral here, especially since he takes one of the swords with the living armor mollusk in it. If you want to label it something different, tell me in the comments, but anyway, this is a nat 20 creature. Senshi informs the party that he has golems on this floor that he uses to farm vegetables. After Senshi temporarily disables them, they harvest and clean the vegetables before sharing a hearty meal. They then take the veggies to a seedy tavern ran by some dungeon locals, but they get really offended when the party asks to trade these veggies. At first, I thought this was a really weird reaction, like this guy is being like really hostile here, but it's actually clever foreshadowing into Season 2. Before the conversation could go further, a band of orcs invade the tavern, kill everyone, and then loot the stores for food and gold. The orcs recognize Senshi and rather than kill the party, take them captive. The orcs try to use liberal guilt to shame them over race relations, the chief especially calling out Laios for not having a plan on what he would do if he took over the dungeon. However, thanks to Senshi and his baking and breaking bread together philosophy, the party is spared. Laios manages to convince the orcs to give him information on how to reach the Red Dragon, promising to only kill the dragon and not disturb the orcish settlements on the lower floors. Thanks to Laios' honest nature, the chief is convinced and wishes them luck, even if Laios is the one that ends up becoming king of the dungeon. Lawful good. In episode 5, the gang run into a bunch of treasure bugs and ghosts. Laios actually gets a chaotic neutral for both. One ding for both interactions. During the treasure bug fight, his new sword alerted him when the treasure bugs began their attack, and he didn't tell the party. During the ghost encounter, the party was fleeing because they didn't have any proper magic available to handle the ghost, but Laios stopped to grab a sandwich that he dropped, which is pretty dumb, even for him. The gang nearly gets TPK'd by ghosts, but thanks to Senshi's improvised holy water, they survive and even get some sorbet out of it. Chaotic neutral. Once they reach the 3rd floor, they find some living painting traps that will suck you in and trap you in the scenario. Noticing that some of the paintings have food in them, Laios suggests diving in voluntarily. Keeping a rope attached to him as an escape route, Laios accidentally learns a bunch of information about the history of the dungeon and the kingdom trapped within it. But since his priority was getting dinner, he didn't actively pay attention. He manages to eat a feast, confirming that you can eat the food, but once he was caught by the elf mage, he called for an escape rope. The party chastised him for wasting time. Chaotic neutral. In the evening, they rest and Chilchuck gets caught up with the mimic, but manages to get his way out of it. Check his video for that particular ding. The party reaches the inevitable RPG water temple. Marcel casts water walk spell on everyone, however it doesn't work on Senshi because of his poor hygiene. Check his video. He also throws a giant fit about it. Instead, he summons a Kelpie he's familiar with and tries to cross the water. Laios is against it, citing that all monsters are dangerous. Senshi mounts the water horse anyway, but it betrays him. Laios dives and rescues Senshi, slaying the Kelpie, and afterwards Senshi and Marcel have a moment together using the remains of the creature to make things. While this is happening, Laios spots some dead adventurers across the lake. He and Chilchuck go help the party and remove them from the lake, hoping the corpse retrievers will revive them. Chilchuck almost gets charmed by some nearby sirens, but thanks to Laios' countersong, they fail. The duo reach the party again, share a meal, and continue with the other half of the episode. We're going to give Laios a double neutral good for being exceptionally helpful this episode. This double neutral good is kinda necessary since it will need to counter his dumbass eating a raw kraken parasite in the second half of the episode. Also, he loots some fishman eggs and seaweed without telling anyone else and feeds it to Marcel. In episode 8, Marcel gets attacked by an undine, and it nearly kills her. She managed to escape by using large portions of her mana to blast the undine and flee. Injured and low on health and stamina, Senshi prepares a bunch of grilled kelpie and feeds Marcel liver in order to recover from blood loss. While she does recover her stamina and prevents her death, another adventuring party runs into them, and one of the previous party members that left at the beginning of the series, a female dwarf named Namari, is also there. Marcel spends a moment scolding her about abandoning the party, however Laios asks for help from their leader, Mr. Tensu, who refuses. Tensu is repelled by the Undine and explores the other locations. Laios and Senshi volunteer to help, and they manage to save Kiki, who gets in trouble due to Tensu's impatience, and as an apology, he heals everyone back to full HP, including Marcel. Her MP, however, is still very low. This world does not run on spell slots. Marcel concocts a plan to cook and consume the Undine outside, since they're spirits and would likely be chock full of mana. The two dwarves team up and, using Senshi's adamantine cooking lids, trap the Undine and boil it. Marcel invites everyone to share the stew that she made with them, using the remaining ingredients that they had from this floor. With everyone fully recovered, Mr. Tensu and his party leave, wishing the others the best of luck and giving everyone a neutral good for this episode, and it's just fantastic. The party have a quick encounter with some tentacle plants and giant frogs, kill them, and make some really funny suits, making it to the castle town. No ding for this. Once in the castle town, they formulate a plan to lure out and defeat the dragon, using mana-efficient warding spells to blow up buildings as improvised weapons. However, it's not enough. Lots of things go wrong during this plan, lots of it due to Laios' mollusk sword freaking out and running away for a bit. However, due to some last-second action, Laios manages to strike a killing blow, using his own sword to strike its weak point for massive damage. Each party member did their part, and each get a different alignment ding for their tactics and bravery. Check out each party member's individual video for those results. Laios was actually quite the liability in this fight, letting go of Senshi's adamantine lid, losing the mithril knife, and abandoning strategy more than once. However, he did get the killing blow with his reckless plan, so we're going to give him a chaotic good for that. After dissecting the creature and finding Fallon's bones, Laios is told by Marcel that she can be brought back by a type of magic called ancient magic. Chilchuck and Senshi clarify and describe it as black magic. Marcel downplays the consequences of this magic, but Laios understands that they are violating the laws of elf, man, and nature to bring Fallon back from death. So we're going to label this actually as neutral evil. Check out the Marcel video for more details. Now with Fallon resurrected, they get her a hot bath, some clothes, and a meal. They tell her what they've been doing for the past week or so, and she finds it very cool. Like brother, like sister. Fallon shows off some seemingly new magic powers she got since being resurrected. And the party try to rest for the night. However, their long rest is interrupted by the Mad Mage, who's in control of Fallon. Unfortunately, the martial characters are unable to do anything, and they are overwhelmed and cast into a pit, but are rescued by some town residents. Laios and Marcel are too injured to do much, but Senshi is there to make peace with the band of local orcs. Skipping to episode 14, since our heroes really aren't in it, the party attempts to make their way back to the surface. They encounter some dryad flowers and a cockatrice. During this time, Laios helps Senshi with some dryads as he's starting to learn magic. He's embarrassed due to how much physical contact healing magic requires, but gets his first dose of mana sickness. True neutral. After de-petrifying Marcel, by the way, Marcel gets petrified in this episode, the party makes it back to the original part of town where they fought the dragon. They escape using dungeon cleaners and run into Shiro, their old party member, as well as some stragglers while preparing a meal. They decide to work together, but Shiro freaks out once Laios tells them that they use ancient magic to revive Fallon. Laios telling Shiro about the magic was foolish, but lawful neutral. After telling Shiro about what happened, they were attacked by harpies and Fallon. During this whole time, Laios is kind of in shock and doesn't do anything. However, he manages to eventually pull himself together, and as he's about to strike a killing blow, he hears the voice of Fallon. He freezes and she manages to get away. Shiro and Laios get into another argument. Shiro says that he's always hated talking to Laios' autistic ass and his inability to read a room, or his lack of people skills and social self-awareness. They get into a brutal fight, but let's be honest, they work this out like men, and they grow a respect for each other after beating the shit out of each other. Shiro gives Laios a special bell that allows Shiro to detect when Laios is ready to leave the dungeon. Shiro then tells him that he will help Laios and his party escape the country and the eyes of the Elves of the West. True neutral for the fight with Fallon, and chaotic neutral for the fistfight diplomacy. This is actually my favorite episode of the series. The party encounter the shapeshifters, creatures that imitate others based on their perception of their friends. It's really interesting since they all take the appearance and personality of what other party members think about them. It's quite brilliant. Laios and the gang manage to narrow it down to 2 people each, but the fight breaks out and he isn't able to break it up. However, based on his knowledge of animals and monsters, Laios figures out the unknown option C that flushes out the kitsune from the shadows. Great episode, no notes, and Laios fully embraces the chaotic neutral option. After dealing with the shapeshifter, the party is attacked by a ninja and former cat girl of Shuro, Itsutsumi. This cat girl is cursed by having her soul merged with the monsters. She originally holds Marcel hostage, but they manage to calm her down, dispel her control collar, and then once the hag curse activates, they save her from the creature, welcoming her to the party. However, they don't think that they can separate Itsutsumi from her cat half. They are pleased to welcome her to the party since Fallon is afflicted with something similar, and they hope that she can regain her personality. Neutral good. Marcel is afflicted by a nightmare. Not a regular one, but the monster. Laios goes into her dream and saves her. Also, they cook and eat monsters that afflicted their pillows. Neutral good. Episode 19 is a Marcel and Itsuzume-focused episode teaching the latter about the importance of trying new things. Marcel serves as a mentor and role model. She does a good job of getting the stubborn cat girl to understand the lesson. Honestly, just neutral good for her, but for everyone else, this is kind of filler. One day while exploring, Itsutsumi notices a presence that the others could not. Kind of like how a cat can see ghosts when they're just looking off into the darkness and you're just really confused. You know, just like real life. Laios confirms that yes, a ghost is there and he can both see and hear it. The ghost is annoyed about being ignored since it was really scary, but eventually offers to take them to the lore cave. The party agrees and they are invited to the ancient city and basically given a breakdown of the dungeon lore. Basically, about 1,000 years ago, the court mage of the Last Kingdom became obsessed with power and lost his brother during an assassination. That was the scene that we saw in the living painting in episode 6. However, when he cast the immortality spell, it ended up being a curse, and these people lived for a long time without needing food, sleep, or anything really. So their senses kind of dulled and they farm, craft, and do chores as a means to stay sane rather than enjoying life. There was a prophecy, however, and it predicted that a man carrying a winged lion sword could defeat the Mad Mage and inherit the kingdom. Unfortunately, this means that it's Laios, due to how Kensuke currently looks. Kensuke's his sword, by the way. I'll talk about this more in the post-analysis, but it makes a lot of sense. Think of how Po from Kung Fu Panda is the perfect dragon warrior because of how nerdy he is about Kung Fu. Anyway, Laios is unsure about what to think about the prophecy, but promises to do their best and beat the Mad Mage and leave. Lawful good. Leaving the lore cave, the party encounter a griffin and Senshi freaks out, causing him to get captured. Marcel creates a familiar and uses it to find Senshi and incapacitates the griffin, allowing Laios to secure the kill. Saving your dwarf friend is neutral good. After rescuing Senshi, he reveals his tragic backstory. Check the Senshi video for more details, but as a means to help him get over his trauma, they prepare the griffin. This is naturally Laios' suggestion. However, sadly, this doesn't work. But Laios figured out that this is because they needed to eat a hippogriff, and they used the nearby changeling mushrooms in order to make that happen. They uncover the truth of his past to Senshi and give him a great big group hug. I'm just going to give another Nat 20 episode. It's just really good. Go watch the show, guys. Gonna give our boy a neutral good for this. Shortly after Senshi's tragic backstory, the party accidentally step into the changeling fairyling and change their races. This is a fun little 2.5 episode parter where they learn about how other races' bodies function in this setting. Dwarves are very strong and have dark vision, half-foots have crazy perception checks, and tall men are emotionally stable? Also, elves are hot. Also, Itsutsumi is a kobold. They come across a door that they couldn't pass before and make some dumplings. They handle the gargoyles that chase them through this door by making makeshift changeling circle with their bodies. This allows them to try more dumplings as well. It's a fun filler episode and it doesn't really warrant another ding, I think. Afterwards, they find an automatic tram that take them down to the lower levels. The party talk about Fallon and their plan to eat all of the dragon meat in order to separate her soul from the soul of the dragon, ending season 1 on a hopeful note. Back in August, an interview was held between the writer of Anime News Network and the author of Delicious in Dungeon, Ryuko Kui. This interview was extremely negatively received because the interviewer kept saying really dumb shit like, Senshi's the fan service character, isn't he? Making Ryuko noticeably uncomfortable, even in this interview. However, there was one question that really stuck out in my mind, and that was the one where the interviewer asked if she envisioned Laios as autistic, and the interviewer responded that she envisioned him as the everyman. And with that, oh honey, no. This bitch autistic. And it's very rare that I would take the voice of the author and reject it when they say that, but there's a few reasons for this. The big one is that Japan and the West view autism in much different ways. Basically speaking, being labeled as autistic in Japan is not necessarily a good thing, nor is it considered a good thing to label your characters as such. Most of the time, it's considered rude. Questions like this interviewer just outright stating it like this are going to get a rejection almost 100% of the time because it's too direct and it comes off as a giant red flag. You know how Shuro mentioned at one point that he tried to let Laios know in subtle ways that he didn't want to hang out with him? That's closer to how Japanese people actually communicate, and the author even mentions this in several interviews. Indirect communication is key, and that was the whole point between this whole interaction because it was meant to represent the cultural differences between Laios and Shuro. And I don't want to spend this whole post-analysis talking about it, but yeah, my daughter has autism as an emotional and mental disability. My wife has Asperger's. And even though that's a term I've been told is rude, we don't actually care because it's a useful term to describe what she has. And I'm somewhere on that toy train ride. You think I'm a normie? The difference is I just know when to get off at the station sometimes. The point is, I think Laios' mental quirks are important to address, but they do not define him. Laios is an honest and trustworthy guy who's just a nice dude. He just doesn't prioritize socializing with others because he finds the world of monsters so much more fun, and he'd rather hang out and study monsters than go to a social function. God forbid men have hobbies, right? Regardless, Laios isn't exactly an everyman like the author suggests, but everyone can relate to what Laios is going through because everyone has a passion for something that maybe everyone else doesn't understand. The important part is that Laios knows when to set aside this passion so that he can focus on important aspects like friends and family. Otherwise, there isn't much to say other than I'm looking forward to Season 2 because from what I understand, Laios gets a lot more to do around that time. Come back next week, however, when we take a look at the resident magic user and check back tomorrow for another Studio Trigger work of art.